Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet SkyFF, the world where everything revolves around £10,000 for now, but 50,000 in a little bit.
He's back onto the 50.
£50,000.
We will discuss both, but we can't win the 10.
I'm Serge, by the way.
I'm James.
I was just thinking about this morning. I was like, I've got a lot of transfers to start thinking about. 43 of the bastards in regular
Oh my God,
Sky.
haven't you?
Yeah, it's plenty, isn't it?
How have you been doing in the World Cup games, Serge?
I have made 2 transfers in the entire game. This is from the first day of the World Cup.
For the benefit of the Sky listeners, Serge hasn't even really been watching the football.
They were made. I sold De Bruyne and I think I sold Mbappe. No, Saliba. Sorry, because they hadn't been playing, and I bought Sandro and Vinicius Junior back when Brazil were doing well.
Magnificent.
But that's it. Other than that, I started the entire game with a rank of 70,000, James, because I was the 70,000th person to register. I now have a rank of 40,000.
Oh, that's good.
So I've gone up 30,000 places without even playing.
So basically, you've been better than...
That's how good I am.
You've probably been better than around about 75% of dead teams, probably.
By being dead. So
By being
it's not
dead.
bad. That's all right.
Okay, well done. Congrats.
It's morbid, isn't it?
Are you going to do anything tonight or no? No, fine. Okay, fine.
I've got Mbappe captain. What else can I do?
Buy some more French players from some of them transfer you got, but it's not worth your while stressing about it.
I ain't getting no money.
As it's not particularly for me either, 222nd in the Sky World Cup game, which is not a bad rank.
No, that's right.
You look at it and go, I mean, I'd said to you pre-tournament, if I didn't finish top 1,000, I'd be pretty
upset.
Disappointed. Well, I'm not upset. I'd sleep fine. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter if you finish full for 4,000 in terms of what it means for you going forwards. It's only it's top 3 in the prize, isn't it? Which I can't get. I'm 60 points off. I've got no one in the team tonight currently. I gambled heavily on Portugal at the weekend. And if they'd have kept a clean sheet, I mean, probably would have been looking at sort of 50, 60th or so. And I went on treble Portugal defensive, and part of the reason for doing it was actually the conclusion of thinking more about what we spoke about in terms of England would have more of the ball than France and stuff. And I decided if it was Portugal v France particularly, then there was every chance that Portugal would have more of the ball than France. Could they hit me passing tiers again? And their ownership was so low. That was the gamble for me. So I'd got done over with, obviously, Spain lost to Morocco. He had a number of Brazilians, like most people did, obviously lost to Croatia. Then gambled to move off of what I could to Portugal on a Saturday. They lost. I didn't do anything last night. I had 4 Argentinians. The reason I didn't add to it was the only one I would have had interest in was Alvarez.
Yeah.
Who obviously popped off.
Points,
yeah, of course, yeah. But I'd looked at it and decided that I didn't think there was passing tiers in them for what was left, unless they lost last night, which I didn't overly think they were going to do so. To the point I was even looking at going, even if Argentina goes to extra time, still not convinced that the likes of Otamendi and Romero will hit passing tier. And I think that's probably how it would have played out. They were in the 30s, I think, for passing. Admittedly, a lot of that's to do with game state, actually, the fact that they were winning comfortably. But there was nothing I wanted other than Alvarez, so I decided to leave it. The plan tonight for me is I'm going to go treble French defensive and swing with that. But yeah, I can't finish top 50, I don't think. So can't win mini leagues. I'm not overly interested. But we've got some questions, haven't we? So okay. I'm happy to cover them for the people who are in there. I want to give a shout out while Suj is looking to one of our patrons, Liam Doyle, who's joint first currently. Liam, we only want 5% if you win. That's what me and Suj have decided.
Yeah, plus the 80.
Which...
Nah, 5% is fine.
I think 5% is fine, but we can discuss it. Good luck, my friend. Play it your way, as I always say to people. And good luck to anybody else listening who's got genuine hopes of still finishing first. There's a number of people I know within the community on Twitter and within our Patreon community have still got a very, very good chance of finishing first. The further off you are, the more differential you need to be. But an interesting point before you do the questions, Serge, because some of them might be, well, what should I do? Listen, the best captaincy tonight on the face of it is Mbappe. Right? If you just remove everything, who do I think will be the highest scoring player tonight? Mbappe. That's why I captained Messi last night. Messi wasn't. Alvarez would have been the choice. But Mbappe probably is going to be the standout. Now, what you want to hope is if you think you've got a genuine chance of finishing first and you haven't got him in your team and you're, I don't know, 30 points off, you've probably got to go for it and go elsewhere.
Giroud, maybe.
Giroud, Dembele in midfield. I think the defensive guys, the ownership's not big. Upamecano's a doubt at the moment, which I think if he's out, I'll probably go down that route and go Giroud rather than Upamecano, and I'll probably just go Varane, Hernandez and Giroud, I think. So the further off you are, the more you need to differentiate. I think like in Liam's case, who's joint first, it's not to tell him what to do, he'll make his own decisions. But in his position, he probably captains Mbappe and gets what he can. So yeah, if you're really miles off, fine. You know, look at treble Morocco defensive, for example. They have been brilliant defensively. Hakimi only needs 2 points tonight to be the highest scoring defender in the game. Wow. He's good for a tackle tier and stuff. If you fancy them, like by all means, you can look at them. The problem with them is there's no passing tiers or anything. Hakimi's different because you've got the small attacking threat and he can hit the tackles where he's worth looking at. But they're fucked defensively, aren't they? We don't know what they're going to line up with tonight. We think Saïs and Aguerd might both be out, for example. I'm not sure if Mazraoui is going to be back. So, I mean, if they pull it off again tonight with 3 of their original back 4 out, I mean, it's incredible. I think the sensible play for most people is to go France. The other people look at it differently and go, you know, perhaps if you've got Argentina, say you're sitting there with 7 Argentina, maybe the idea if you think Morocco will, I don't know, get a 0-0, take it to extra time and lose is to go 3 Morocco defensively, have that again for Saturday and then go back on the Sunday. There's a few different ways to play it.
Well, let's lean into the questions because you're kind of answering one there in your thought process, which is Daniel. He's 9th overall in Sky World Cup. These are World Cup questions, just I might clarify.
Yeah. We are going to do a bit of Prem.
We're going to do a bit of Premier League in just a minute, but we'll get through the rest of these World Cup because there's only 3 games left. And one of which we don't know who's playing Croatia yet. Daniel is 9th overall in Sky World Cup. Well done. He's got no third place playoff coverage if France win, which we think is going to happen. Should I bear this in mind with tonight's 3 transfers? Well, you want a captaincy for that game?
I think no.
Or just go straight for the final?
Yeah, I think go straight for the final and on Saturday make 1 transfer for a captaincy.
That's it.
That would be my take. The problem with the third, fourth...
And then go back. Yeah.
Depends what you might have dead players. Who knows? Yeah. Well, obviously that player will be dead come Sunday, yes. The problem with the third, fourth and planning for that is if it's Croatia and Morocco, that's kind of the best in terms of potential for team strengths.
It's ultimate 0-0, isn't it?
No, but it probably won't be. Honestly, I would think that if it's Croatia Morocco on Saturday, it'll probably be like 2-2 or 3-2 or something like that. And you're going Hail Mary on an attacking player, I think, to get in. Maybe even someone who, I don't know, let's say like a Kramaric who no one will have, for example. If he plays again, you might think, it's going to be high scoring this one, I'll go for it. The problem with third and fourth is, take the example of France. Let's say France get beat tonight. Right, I think France changed their whole team for that game on Saturday. Agreed. But I'd still want to punt, I don't know, Kingsley Coman gets some minutes, for example, or something in the third, fourth playoff. I'd probably want to punt something like that. I think even in the case of Croatia and Morocco, there might be some rotation. I don't think it's guaranteed that they're going to pick first choice teams, particularly like goalkeepers could change and stuff like that. I would imagine for Morocco, they'd really want to try and win the game. But say they go to 120 minutes tonight and get beat on penalties, they're going to end up changing quite a bit the team on Saturday, I think.
Agreed.
So I think in terms of planning for Saturday, your best bet, honestly, and this will be me as well, because all I'll have is 4 Argentina and 3 France. Best bet is just go Saturday, see the teams, punt something mad. That would be the only chance I had left, would be I go and punt someone and he goes and gets 4 on Saturday or something. And he's got no ownership.
FPL Hit Taker says, was it a penalty?
Yes.
No. What's he talking about?
Suj doesn't watch football anymore.
Are we talking about Harry Kane?
No, he's talking about
night?
The foul on Alvarez last night.
Okay, fine.
Which everyone thought...
There's no clarity in the question.
I know what it means. Everyone thought was a penalty until the ITV studio guests, Gary Neville, Ian Wright and Roy Keane, came back from their break and were all adamant that it wasn't a penalty. Yeah, it was a penalty.
So are we in a situation again with Manchester City where we were with Jesus, where they probably have one of the most prolific strikers in the league, and he's just never going to play with Julian Alvarez?
Yeah, I mean...
It's unbelievable, isn't it? It is Jesus Mark II, where when he plays, he'll be a beast, and he'll just never play.
He'll get into 70-75% of other Premier League teams.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I've seen some people tweeting last night, he'd get into every other team. I can promise you that's not the case. But he'd get into a lot of other teams, yeah.
Adi Tour, best players from Morocco versus France tonight.
I think logically, every centre-back against Morocco so far has hit pass and tier, I think. And that's why you want to go with the French guys. For me, the problem is with Konate, unless it was ruled before the game, Upamecano's out for 2 weeks or something, I'd think he'd still come back in for the final, for example. So Konate would probably only be useful for me to get for 2 games if I actually thought France were going to lose. Then that kind of defeats the purpose. And that's why I would maybe go Giroud as my third tonight. But I think it's the centre-backs, I think. Like Mbappe, as I said, is the standout captaincy. I would imagine he'd score tonight. But for most people looking for something different, yeah, for me it would be the French defence. And it's not the same Morocco can't win. It's just looking at it logically and knowing if they do and keep a clean sheet, there's every chance the 10-pointer is there. You know, Pepe had said to you at the weekend, if he finishes that chance at the end and if they'd have kept the clean sheet properly, you're looking at the haul, aren't you? So I imagine the passing tier will be for the French guys. Just on the side note of that, I wouldn't be surprised in the final if it's France, Argentina, I wouldn't be surprised if none of the centre-backs hit passing tier in the final. The chances are the team that's behind will have more of the ball. I would imagine the longer it's 0-0, probably France would have a bit more of it, but actually neither of them particularly want it. They're both better on the counter.
Rob picks 43rd overall.
Doing great.
He's got Tchouameni, Dembele, and three transfers.
Yep.
Swing against Mbappe and Griezmann and Giroud, or just go with it?
Yeah, I don't mind Griezmann as a shout because it's uber differential.
Would you swing now? Would you go with the centre-backs, for example?
I think at 43rd, Rob can still win it.
Okay.
So, yeah, I would go against Mbappe.
Okay.
You know what's probably going to happen, but I think you've got to play it that way. If you just go Mbappe captain tonight, he's not going to do the job for you to finish first.
Ian Parrin has been enjoying Sky Fantasy Football. He said, how good has it been? He's thoroughly enjoyed the format, and he thinks it's really well suited to next year's Champions League. 3 transfers per match day. Captaincy switch between Tuesday and Wednesday, and an overhaul between group stages and knockouts. Thoughts?
Love it.
Will they do it? I don't know. Paul Sky Player and FPL has jumped in and said he really likes it as well. Do we know anyone with any connections at Sky Fantasy Football, mate? Tell them to do it.
I won't go naming names.
Tell them to do it.
But if they are listening, thanks for what you've done with this game because we've all really enjoyed it, I think.
Fair play.
And thanks to the improvements that's been made to the Premier League game this year as well. And we all obviously want to play next year. A Champions League version sounds absolutely fantastic to me. We'll have to move the Sky Pods to Tuesday, Suj.
Or we'll do Patreon Champions League.
Mind you, you would do the Wednesday to get the gains. Still.
That's true, but we've been doing UEFA Champions League fantasy anyway on Patreon. Shout out to the Patreon, it's free or whatever. Oh, it's upgrade in January now. You're too late if you wanted free stuff.
Suj with a great sale as usual.
Yeah. I think it would be interesting to see if Sky did decide that they wanted to do it.
If they want to do it, great. I'm in. Sign me up. If they do this game again for the Euros in 24, sign me up.
BT, but the game's on Sky.
Yes, well, that's true. But then Sky have had no coverage of the World Cup, have they? So, look, they just decided to do it. I think it's absolutely brilliant. I think the format has been better than people anticipated it would be. I think it's been great. It's been really enjoyable. It's been by far the best format game for me. So,
that's it for the World Cup questions, James.
Okay.
We do now need to divert our focus back to the Premier League, which restarts again on Boxing Day. We have TV fixtures up until February. We did touch a little bit on it before we broke up, because we had up until some of January and stuff was in, but now we've got quite a bit more. At the time, obviously you were saying that there's no real panic to need to get loads of fringe players from random single game days. With the release of the February fixtures, has that changed in any way, shape or form what you're thinking about on Overhaul? Because February's quite a way away. You can kind of...
Yeah, I mean,
later,
look,
right?
I've not looked at a draft yet. Is the honest truth. Partly because of not knowing what players are coming back from when. I mean, I give you a perfect example. We discussed on Monday's pod search about actually the players that are still away are just not going to be a problem for FPL, but a couple of them might be for Sky. So I think, for example, Lisandro Martinez of Manchester United is someone we spoke about perhaps wanting some United captaincy at the start. He's the sort of one, it's a bit, that's a problem. And you think, I'll go Varane instead then. Oh shit, he's still away with France as well. So that's got a little bit complicated, where I think most would have gone in with the idea of thinking, yeah, I probably do want Martinez, I think, primarily. And maybe now looking at it thinking, probably punt a United attacker for a few weeks, for example. But there isn't anything overly damaging, let me say, from the players that are away. I think we're going to be more blessed than we thought we'd be. Romero's not really done it like we would have expected for Tottenham this season. I guess Alexis McAllister for Brighton's obviously been a really good enabler for people this year, but there are obviously alternatives. Emi Martinez does have a single game day now, which we'll touch on in a bit. Villa against Leeds on January the 13th, which is a Friday night. But with Liverpool and Tottenham to start with, I don't think people would have been looking that way. Ivan Perisic has not been of interest, particularly to people this year. The only other one really, is, which is a big, probably the biggest point from a Sky perspective, is William Saliba, who's obviously still away with France. Presumably, if France lose tonight, then he'll play the fourth place playoff, which you might argue Arsenal might want him to do to get him back in some match fitness. He'd have to be a doubt for... Certainly, if they win the tournament, it'd have to be a doubt for the first game back against West Ham, I think. Because there's no reason that they can't just play White at centre-back. He is back in training with Arsenal now. Tommy Asu and Zinchenko as the fullbacks. Gabriel with White.
Saliba's probably going to be one of the hardest decisions, because on top of that, he's sitting there on 4 yellows, isn't he? So as soon as he gets a yellow...
Fuck, he is, isn't he?
Yes, he is. So
Jesus.
You don't know if he's going to play the first game, and as soon as he gets a yellow, he's going to miss another game. But we've been here before where you hold off. And was it Suarez that ended up getting loads of goals when he was on 4 yellows? I'm trying to think. There was a player that popped off.
You got a better memory than me.
We were talking about where you hold off because you think that suspension's coming and it doesn't, and in the meantime they've racked up tons of points. Now Arsenal's run when we get back isn't the easiest. Let's say they're capable of beating everybody, but it isn't the easiest. So I think he's going to be a real headache. Is William Saliba.
I think my take would be, remember, this is different to previous. We haven't got another Overhaul. I'm going to want him at some stage, aren't I?
Sure.
Like, if I look at it and go, Arsenal have got, let's say, I think 22 games left. Okay, if he misses 2 of 4, but he's just going to sit there for me literally all season if he stays fit. Am I better off just putting him in? That would maybe be my take. It might be one where you might want to look at as an example. If you're really concerned about it, you could instead of going say 4 or 5 at the back, you go 3 at the back. You could have like Tyler Adams as a placeholder, use him for that single game day captaincy. You get effective 5 of 3 at the start with a captaincy, and it'll be more. Obviously, if Saliba misses the first game, if he gets booked in the second, suddenly it could be a 5-3-1. And then you can obviously move that from, say, Adams back to Saliba. That would be an example thing that perhaps maybe people would want to consider.
Fulham have quite a few single game days.
Yes.
The thing is, they're playing teams where I'll probably have coverage from the other team, possibly, maybe. But Chelsea's a bit of one that we need to discuss.
Not all the way, though.
Not all the way. But even in the games where you do have coverage, just having Mitro there as a just-in-case captain, always to fall back on, almost makes him a lock for my team, I think. Mitro.
Well, he won't for everyone because you've got Paulinho.
Yeah, that's true.
My first take on it probably would be that I may start with both. because Mitrovic is super value. I think he's about 7.9 or something, isn't he? Serge Paulinia's like 6.6. They're both super value. And obviously, of course, if one gets injured or something, you think, oh shit, I need another Fulham player.
Yep.
It's there and it's ready. So
7-7 Mitrovic.
just to run through their fixtures, interesting these. So, and you will want to start with as well, really, in terms of if you want them for captaincy. So it's Palace away, Southampton at home. There's Leicester away on a Tuesday. And then the following Thursday now, they have this single game day at home to Chelsea, where Chelsea's an awkward one because they've got a few decent fixtures to start with themselves. Bournemouth, Forest. It's probably going to come round in importance in terms of who's fit and available, as discussed on the COTC with Gary Mantle last week. Like, there's still doubts about Kepa. Reece James would probably be the first two you want to look at, probably from a Sky perspective. It's a little bit awkward with the centre-backs. I think over a condensed period, you've always got concerns about Thiago Silva and how much he's going to play. Koulibaly hasn't overly impressed. You've got Fofana to come back at some stage. He's very unlikely to be fit, we think, for the game with Bournemouth on the 27th of December. So you'd want something Chelsea, but it's not clear at the moment.
Yep.
So I think like Fulham is your safety net there for that. Could Fulham beat Chelsea at home? Well, yeah, from what we saw from Chelsea pre-World Cup, yeah, why not? Following that, they have a few difficult games. Newcastle away, but then you've got Tottenham at home as a single game day. Mm-hmm. Now, on the face of it, that small one, Kane will obviously be popular. Then they have single game day again immediately, which is the return against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. That one you're probably less comfortable captaining. But remember, if your players are Paulinho and Mitrovic, like, are they fine for captaincy in that? Yeah. Fulham might lose 4-1 and Mitrovic will score. Paulinho is almost more likely to pick up the tackles in some of these more difficult fixtures, but that's fine. So you think, oh, that's great, I'll come off. And then you look ahead and you go, it's Forest at home next. That's a Saturday, so you're not coming off. It's Brighton away. That's a Saturday, you're not coming off. And of course you're not coming off, because then as it stands, it's Wolves at home on Friday the 24th as well as a single game day. And you don't want no Wolves, do you? No. So it's Fulham again. So that they've got 4 single game days in there, and you might end up captaining 3 of them. And the entry points to go back in is not easy. Essentially, it would be the Tottenham game, really, I think. The Monday the 23rd game. That would be the point to go back in if you need to. But it's not ideal. No. It's not ideal. So you definitely want to start with 1, I think. And there's every case for me, like I said, it'll be 2 in case you lose 1. I've got the other one as the insurance. I think primarily, though, it is still the big 6 that we're going to be looking at mostly. Fulham obviously come into that category plus in terms of Newcastle, yeah, let's say big 7. Newcastle are a part of that. But, and if you had to say with Newcastle, very similar to when we spoke about Bruno a lot in sort of August, September, there's no captaincy need. Again, now you could have certain ones where there's a preference. I'll give you an example. So Sunday the 15th of January, Newcastle play Fulham at home, Chelsea play Palace at home, and Tottenham play Arsenal. So if you're there and you've got Newcastle at that point, you might think, oh, preference. It's another one you could put Fulham down for even. Yep. There's no requirement for them, but you've got players like Pope, Trippier, Almiron.
7 million is a ridiculous price.
Well, we've overlooked it all period.
Top and scoring midfielder.
It's almost a, shall I stick him in? But again, there's no captaincy requirement for him. And you could even make the case that Fulham game, if you did need it, is a good little entry point. They've got Leicester away, Leeds at home, Arsenal away. It's not a brilliant first 3. Then you've got the break with that Fulham fixture on the 15th is a Sunday. So you could attack them then in for Fulham, Palace, West Ham, Bournemouth. Sell again on that Saturday. Their next fixture after that's Liverpool. So it might be one that is easy enough to come back to. But I'd be beyond the point now of saying, oh, don't get Almiron. Like at 7 million, it's great value. But then suddenly, if you're building a team and you've got Saliba, Almiron, Paulinho, Mitrovic, are you even spending 100 million?
Yeah.
But then that allows you to thump into other things. So I think Man City are going to be extremely popular.
I've got a draft, James. It's not really a draft. I don't even call it a draft. With Saliba, Almiron, Mitrovic, Paulinho. It's got Salah, De Bruyne, Haaland, Cancelo, Rodri, and 2.2 million in the bank. It's crazy.
Yeah. we'll come on to some things that you'll need
And I can
to cover that up.
I can hokey cokey Spurs in with Kane coming off.
Did you say you got Salah in there?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you've got no Kane.
No, but I've got 43 transfers. So I look at it as a 3, like Salah, De Bruyne, Haaland. Between them, I can decide where I'm going to Kane and back to one of these guys and move it around.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you an example for you. You could, you've got 3 up front, Edo, have you?
2.
Or 2? You got 2, perfect. So you could, perfect example, you could have, you could miss Kane away to Brentford first game. You could have De Bruyne for Leeds away, Everton at home. Go for Kane for the 2 captaincies, Sunday the 1st home to Villa and Wednesday the 4th away to Palace, and go back to KDB. Like for me, who's got 31, I think I've got, that's less of a consideration for me. For me, I'd be looking at it with Kane and going, there's a lot of games there I want. And actually, Tottenham's quite an awkward one, and I'll explain why. So, Sunday the 1st, the only other game is Forest against Chelsea. We just spoke about there might be a bit of awkwardness with Chelsea. So, I think Tottenham home to Villa anyway, Kane will be popular, you know that. That Wednesday the 4th, Tottenham go to Palace. It's by no means an easy fixture, but they're the only big 7, if you will, team that's playing that night, which is away to Palace. Southampton against Forest, Villa against Wolves, West Ham go to Leeds. Kane will be the most popular. Yep. So you have to factor that into your thinking. And then beyond that, you've obviously got the Sunday the 15th. Kane's record against Arsenal is well known. So, he'll come into consideration. And then Tottenham go to City on the 19th. Now, the thing to bear in mind of that game is it can get moved. If either Tottenham or Man City draw in the 3rd round of the FA Cup, that fixture will be postponed and be rearranged. I will add, I think it could be moved as early as the following midweek, possibly, if Man City were to lose to Liverpool in the Carabao Cup next week. City have Chelsea in the FA Cup, Tottenham have Portsmouth in the FA Cup. So it's not impossible that either of those 2 teams could draw in the 3rd round and have a replay, which will move the game. If City go out the Carabao Cup, I think they'll try and force it in for one of the midweeks of the League Cup. First, as League Cup semis, 1st or 2nd legs, I really think they'll move it quite quickly. But let's say the game happens, you're not going to come off again because after the City game, Tottenham's next game is the Monday night game against Fulham. So you'll have them Fulham options, but again, let's be honest, Kane's going to be popular, isn't he, from the captaincy? Again, you can't get rid because afterwards, Tottenham play on the Sunday against City. Then after that is Leicester away, Saturday the 11th. There is an escape. And to be honest, Kane would arguably come into consideration for captaincy on that day. I've got Arsenal best at home to Brentford. And you could say you can come off there, but the following Sunday, on the 19th of February, Tottenham have West Ham at home, United have Leicester at home. From a popular captaincy, it's probably going to be Kane again. The following Sunday, it's Tottenham against Chelsea and Manchester United against Brentford. It might even be Kane again for that, and also Manchester United Brentford could even be off that day because it's the same day as the Carabao Cup final. So that Tottenham-Chelsea could even end up being a single game day. That game's locked, by the way, because both teams are out of the Carabao Cup. So actually coming off of Kane will be quite difficult. I also think it means it'll be difficult to go to other Tottenham players. So I think Kane, when people look at it longer term, is possibly going to be a really popular just sit in and leave. That said, I spoke about coming off after Tottenham play Leicester on Saturday 11th of February. Before Tottenham play West Ham the following Sunday, Man City got 3 games. 3 games. They play Aston Villa at home the following day. Arsenal away on the Wednesday, that rearranged game on the 15th. And then they go to Nottingham Forest on the 18th, on the Saturday. So you could come off Kane there, have 3 Man City games, and then go back the next day. Yep. And with City, I really think we're in for a period where, particularly if that Tottenham fixture stays in there, we're going to want a lot of Man City.
4, 5?
There's awkwardness in City at the moment in the sense that, and it's often the case with them, but it feels even more at the moment with the centre-back problem. But maybe if we wait a little bit, it might become a little bit clearer between Diaz, Laporte, Nathan Akiu's improved hugely, Manuel Akanji, and I've got another one, haven't they? So it's John Stones. We've got 4.
He played so well.
I've got 5 very good centre-backs. What they don't have is a load of full-backs. So Cancelo, really, if you can afford the extra, which breaking down the draft you looked at, for most people will still be affordable, is going to be the first place to go. I think fitting in the likes of KDB, Foden on top of Haaland might even be a way to go. So I've obviously used that Tottenham Man City example in February, and that's ages away. Let me give you a different example that involves...
I just sold Almiron. I bought Foden with my 2.2 million.
Okay, that's good.
Cancelo, Rodri, De Bruyne, Foden, Haaland. I've got all 5 in at the moment.
I love that you're on it.
Yeah, and let's do it. Let's go Man City. I don't want him to win the league.
I will go for a draft next Wednesday.
I don't want him to win the league.
I can't go for a draft now because I generally haven't done one.
I mean, look, I think from the conversations, it's going to be...
We're going to be template again, I'm afraid to say.
Yes, but there are a lot of good options available.
The good thing this time is, and before people think, oh my God, it's going to be template again. It is, because some of this stuff's going to be quite straightforward and obvious and also affordable. But with 22 match weeks still to go, it will move.
Yep.
And once it moves, this time it's going to be...
What, 35?
It's going to be harder to go back.
So that's 1.5 per week. So it will move quick.
Yep, agreed. Let me give you a United example. So I already mentioned Martinez, where a lot of people are going to be looking at him from the start. Forest at home, Wolves away, Bournemouth at home are 3 great fixtures. And I'd arguably have, if he was definitely going to play, I'd argue have him best the 2 of the 3, the 2 home games. The day they go to Wolves, Manchester City host Everton. So there's no City lineup to see from that. But I'd see no reason why Haaland wouldn't play. Let me put it that way, right? 2 games in, we're going to rest him when they've got FA Cup the following week. I don't see it. So, and the Chelsea game isn't until 5 days later. So that's the league game they have. They do have them in the FA Cup as well. So I think still City against Everton on New Year's Eve. But the Leeds away game Wednesday the 28th is a single game day. So you've got to have some City. It's a single game day. Let's be honest, the majority of us are going to go with Haaland. The day before United play Forest, the only other game that day is Chelsea-Bournemouth. We're back to Chelsea. This is, at the moment, it's not clear. Maybe this time next week it will be clear, but it's not at the moment. In any case, I would arguably maybe prefer Forest at home to United at home to Forest rather than Chelsea at home to Bournemouth. You do see the Chelsea team, interestingly, but it's day 2, so you're not going to buy a Chelsea player that day unless you've had an injury on Boxing Day. Mm-hmm. It's not going to make sense. I think that's what Chelsea will be. There'll be contingency. Contingency for injuries is what there'll be for a lot of people. So United home to Forest, and on Tuesday the 3rd, they've got Bournemouth at home. Arsenal play Newcastle as an alternative. I think with that fixture, if you've got a United defensive, you're looking at that thinking clean sheet and passing tiers is a possibility. Now, let's say you go that way. Let's say it becomes clear to us ahead of Boxing Day. Ten Hag says, Martinez back in training. We want to have him. He's like 8.4 or something. So he's a reason. Is that what he is?
I was looking at Marcus Rashford's price, actually, which is 8.1.
Yeah, I mean, it's an alternative.
But I will tell you, Martinez,
a lot of people will even be able to afford Bruno. And I'd use Bruno as a good example here.
8.3, James.
Martinez, yeah. What's Bruno? 10.9 or something?
10.5.
10.5. Yep. Now, if you've saved the money, you could definitely go for Bruno Fernandes for these 3 games and then jump to City. So after the Bournemouth game, City go to Chelsea 2 days later. Over that period, up until United are scheduled to play Leicester on Sunday the 19th of February, there's 8 City fixtures to United's 4. And there are a number of different little cases like this, where because City have that last game against Chelsea on Thursday the 5th, they've also got the extra game against Tottenham on the 19th. And you've now got the extra game with Arsenal in on Wednesday the 15th of February. There are loads of scenarios like that. And I'm not sure further down the line if we're going to have better chances than this.
My big question to you is going to be, for people who have 40 transfers plus, let's say, attack, like in this next, let's say up until the end of February is what, 9-10 game weeks maybe? Attack? Yeah, go for it. James is nodding his head for the audio listeners.
That would be helpful. Sorry, podcast. In my head, and again, I've not even looked at a draft yet, but in my head, I would like to be in a position when City play Chelsea to have Cancelo, Foden, De Bruyne, and Haaland.
Chuck in Rodri, go on.
And maybe and be adding in a centre back once something's become a little bit clearer at that point as well. Because I would like that move. Martinez for the 3. and see the City team against Chelsea on Thursday the 5th and add in a City centre-back there. That's the sort of move I'd like to do. So, yeah, I mean, the other thing to say is obviously you will need other players to cover round that period. So, Liverpool, I don't think are necessary, but they are at the start. So, they've got Villa away first day, which I think, to be honest, opening day captaincy, which we'll speak a little bit more next week. But Boxing Day is quite open. You've got Arsenal against West Ham, Tottenham go to Brentford, Liverpool go to Villa. That's quite open between those three teams, if you will. Chelsea United play the next day, City play on the Thursday. I don't think you're looking elsewhere. I mean, would you Mitrovic away to Palace? I don't think so. You're looking for those three teams, but you could definitely avoid Liverpool there. Where you can't is the next two games. Friday the 30th, you've got two games. Liverpool host Leicester and West Ham host Brentford. There is no requirement for West Ham players going forward. You do have a nice little run, those 4 fixtures we spoke on our Patreon pod earlier. But I think, am I going in for Bowen or a defensive player that never hits tiers or anything? He's not there really at the moment for West Ham. I think we can just overlook it. So Liverpool against Leicester you're going to want. And then 3 days later, single game day, Liverpool go to Brentford. It is, I think, by the way, a 5:30 kickoff, just something to note, rather than an 8 o'clock, because it is a bank holiday here. I presume that's to give Liverpool fans a better chance of getting home. They'll still be fucked at that time.
New Year's Day, right?
That's Monday the 2nd.
Oh, so yeah, well, yes, that's what I meant. Bank
Monday the 2nd. So you're going to want Liverpool captaincy coverage from the Leicester game and then the Brentford game. But you could then make the move from a Salah to a De Bruyne on that Thursday against Chelsea, and I think you can get away with no Salah, no Van Dijk. Because looking ahead at Liverpool's other days, we'd say, right, are they best for captaincy? Saturday the 14th, they go to Brighton. You've got the Manchester derby as an alternative. If we're going heavy into City, we might be going that way anyway. The following Saturday, Liverpool play Chelsea at home, and I've actually got them best for that day. But Arsenal play Manchester United. There's alternatives. Following week, Liverpool on a Saturday again. They go to Wolves. Arsenal go to Everton. There are alternatives. The one there isn't is Monday the 13th of February. They've now got a single game day against Everton. But from that period of the Brentford game on Monday the 2nd to the Everton game on the 13th of February, yeah, sure, you're going to miss, 3 Liverpool fixtures? Brighton, Chelsea, Wolves you're going to miss. And over that period, City play 6 times. Wherever you look, there are big City gains here against almost anybody. And that's where I think when it comes round to that Chelsea fixture on the 5th, people will look at it and go, shit, I might be short here.
Right.
So we don't need... Is Salah going to be the best on some of those days? An example, yes, he probably is. But Arsenal particularly, Arsenal or City will put up a barrier that covers against Liverpool. Other captaincy you'll need is Fulham.
Yep.
We've spoken about, could cover the Chelsea day. Villa Leeds, Friday the 13th. Could you use Adams, like we said, you could use that. That might be ideal even. Use Adams as the enabler to hold for Saliba for that doubt at the start, possibly. Sunday the 15th, we've spoken about, is open. I think if you go with, you'll probably need to go Harry Kane if you're going heavy Man City. We'll cover that. And that's it. That'll cover you through. Honestly, you don't need anything else. The only other one you need is coming back to Fulham Friday the 24th of February.
By then people will have had injuries and suspensions and all sorts.
The Monday before Liverpool play Everton. But then because that's the last of the week, you can go off it. I mean, you could make the case there to go... you could even, I used the example of going Kane to the City. You could think, well, I'd rather get a Liverpool captaincy and have an effective 3-0. You could do the same. You can go Kane to Salah for Liverpool v Everton, have Salah away to Newcastle, go back for Kane the next day against West Ham. So Liverpool's the interesting one. The psyche in me tells me they have to come good because they're much better than what they've shown us. But it's not necessarily needed. City, Arsenal, Tottenham, Fulham will cover you most of the captaincy through January, interestingly. Chelsea, I mean, if we start throwing in Fofana in at cheap and stuff, if he becomes available and it becomes clear, it's just another one that opens up for you to power into
premium
whatever
City.
You want.
Yep.
Yeah, possibly.
Agreed. Good. So this time next week, James, will be draft time. We'll be coming close to game time. The World Cup will be over. We'll know where we stand with all of that kind of thing as well. And so we will be talking about our drafts before Christmas weekend, when we'll be off, obviously, before Boxing Day. So make sure wherever you are listening to the podcast, you have hit the subscribe button or the like button or the follow button or any other button that's available other than the thumbs down, right?
5-star rating, thanks.
All of that. You'll get notified as soon as we go live tomorrow. Live next week. But tomorrow, James, you have another Clash of the Correspondents. No.
I don't.
That's Friday.
I'm streaming tomorrow, but I haven't
James.
I haven't decided what time yet. It's probably going to be 3.
3 p.m. UK time in the afternoon, more than likely. Keep an eye out on Twitter where James will release that.
Clash of the Correspondents does return this Friday. Arsenal v West Ham.
Yes.
And Johnny Pringle is on Clash of the Correspondents next Tuesday before our next Sky Pod for Leeds v Man City. Johnny does play Sky, so I may drop in and get his opinion on what he thinks for that as well.
Good. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll be back here tomorrow. Stay safe. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Cue music, please, man. Sharp.